joystick, if you just tip it up, it'll go to wherever you want it to go to. It's gonna follow your hand movements. Good job. Are you, okay, so touch on my face, on the camera, on the screen. It should make a little yellow box around my head.
Yep.
And that makes me in focus. There seem to be two diverging accounts that explain the creation of the boysenberry. They both give credit to Rudolf Boysen for its overall cross-pollination involving garage science run amok. One of the stories claims Mr. Boysen acquired the original plant that was a cross between a dewberry and a loganberry. This is in contrast to the other story, which states the dewberry was added later only to remove the thorns from the plant. At this point in time, the information on the order of the pollination and the exact process Mr. Boysen used has been lost to the sands of time. But thankfully, those original boysenberry plants were not, as they are still on the farm next to the roundhouse across the tracks from Supreme Scream. All in all, there is no doubt that in the late 20s, George M. Darrow of the United States Department of Agriculture began tracking down reports of a large, radish purple berry. The trail would lead him to farm country along Beach Boulevard in Buena Park, California, where he would meet a nice young man and his family of 5 who were selling crops from their 10-acre kingdom on the side of the road. Mr. Dower would enlist the help of the young man and find out his name was Walter Knott. Little did Walter know how much taking that trip to help the government official would change his life and the face of the land he loved forever. Walter would lead Mr. Darrow to Rudolf Boysen, who was the original seller of the berry, as Walter had more than likely heard the story of the thumb-sized berry from passers-by and probably drove to find them all on his own long before Mr. Darrow ever came to the farm. After speaking with Rudolf Boysen, the men had a good idea of where the creek was that he had abandoned the original plants. Walter would dig up 5 of those plants, bring them to the farm, and nurse them back to fruit-bearing health. At this point, he began the process of cloning the plants by snipping small pieces of the vine and nurturing it to grow roots. This process would take Walter a little over 2 years to have an established, repeatedly producing crop, just in time for the Great Depression. In 1932, after being asked the berry's name more times than they could count, Walter and Cordelia decided the berry should be named for its creator. And from that point on, the small handwritten sign at the berry stand would read boysenberries. It's 100% certain that the berry was never referred to as the knot berry, but up until 1932, it was called something at the stand. Possibly large or jumbo berries, but who could say? The sign may have only had the price, and it may have never had a name. But we know one thing for sure. Walter and Cordelia decided to name the berry after Mr. Boysen, possibly to continue on his surname, as he only had one son. By the 1940s, almost 600 acres of land in the United States was dedicated to the cultivation of the boysenberry. In the 1950s, about 2,400 acres were being cultivated. At this time, the size of the boysenberry crop in the United States had exceeded those of the more common berry varieties, such as raspberry and blackberry. In the 1960s, the boysenberry began to fall out of favor due to a combination of things: the difficulty of cultivation, susceptibility to fungal disease, too soft and delicate of a berry to easily ship, and a short season of availability. But with the Knott's Boysenberry Festival and other seasonal foodie celebrations now happening around the country, it's becoming more common to see berries as an ingredient in more foods. The boysenberry will most likely never enjoy the popularity it did of the 50s, nor will a man's garage experiment to cross-pollinate multiple plants, ending at a berry stand that would support a tea room, that would expand to a chicken dinner restaurant, that would encourage the development of an amusement park, that would change the entertainment industry, and still does to this day. An interesting story we came across in doing research for this episode was that one Christmas, Virginia Knott asked her father Walter if she could get a piano. And on Christmas Day, Walter gave his daughter a note saying that she could get her piano with the profits from that year's berry harvest. 2 weeks later, temperatures would begin to drop and it snowed one night. Walter would tell Virginia that morning that the weather has just frozen the keys right off your piano, kid. That's all I got, Doug. I'm out.